there, everybody. Looking forward to racing this year. I hope everybody else is getting ready to as well. I think next weekend pretty much starts to kick off the majority of the race season for a lot of people. So I know that I used to live up north, and I would always come into this time of the year quite nervous because my fitness wasn't always tested like I thought it should be. And so I knew that my training was going however I thought it was going well, hopefully, but yet doing it in a race situation is always different and something that it's always nerve-wracking until you try it out for the very first time. So don't worry about that. Be positive. Try to focus on positive goals and trying to think about exactly what it is you want to accomplish, and you're going to be totally fine. Here's what I'll tell you, and this kind of leads into what I wanted to say. At this point, it's all about the mind. Hopefully you've done the training. So now it's time to trust that the training's there. The training that you have put in is going to work. And if it hasn't, you can still tweak it. It's early in the season, so you're not going to carry the pressure right now. I can tell you too, it takes about 14 days for your actual body to respond to training. So if you're racing within the next 14 days, now the point is to just stay sharp. There's not a lot that you can do in order to tune it up a little bit more than that. So stay sharp right now. It's all about the mind, getting a good positive mindset. Focusing on staying engaged, that's one of the best things that you can do in the race. So spend this time now figuring out how exactly you're going to stay engaged throughout the whole race. Figure out if you're going to refocus on your swim stroke at the swim buoys. Figure out, how are you going to set up your swim lines. Thinking about all those types of things that you're going to do that will make the biggest improvement from now through racing is doing those types of things and finding ways to get yourself back on track and focused, because when we're new to racing every year, those are the things that we get rusty at. You look at a lot of the Ironman triathletes, and a lot of them are more senior that do really well, and it's because they've had a lot of time to put in the effort and remember these tricks so that they're not making as many mistakes. The other thing is, if you're fighting off a little nagging injury right now, the best thing you can do is show up on the start line healthy. I would rather have my athletes 90% trained and 100% healthy than 100% trained and 90% healthy. So get healthy right now. Remember, it's going to take 14 days to really make any adaptations for training that you do right now. So the best thing you can do is just show up healthy. I would say set short-term objectives throughout the whole race. So like I said, one of the things that I focus on is I think about my swim stroke a lot, and it's easy to get complacent. At the beginning, you're nervous. Everybody's going to go out fast. Try to go out a little bit faster or slower than you think, because you're going to be going out faster than you think. So try to keep yourself in check, and then you probably will find a sense of complacency in there, to be honest with you. So I always use the swim buoys as a time to remind myself of staying on top of the intensity, not getting mentally laxed, thinking about the things that my swim coaches like Dave Miner has been helping me with, and doing those types of things at every swim buoy. I use those as opportunities to make sure that I am on track. I also look at my swim line too. A lot of times, the line of the buoys is not the fastest line. Remember, you only have to turn at the turn buoys. So check out the fastest line. It might be that you have a current that's pushing you. So you might want to read when people are warming up if they're getting pushed, or you might want to see if the buoys are actually on an angle, and you want to set yourself up for success at that. Checking my notes because I have so many good ideas. I have to write them down sometimes. Don't overanalyze stuff right now. When you're racing, race. I always say, try to use your numbers unless you're totally new to the distance and you do need to color in the lines. Training, as we've talked about before, should be teaching you exactly how it should feel to race. And you need to trust how those feelings are being interpreted on race day. And a lot of times when we're looking at our numbers, it's because we already know we're doing something wrong. So if I'm looking down to see, am I going too hard? It's because I know I'm probably going too hard. If I'm thinking, am I going too easy? It's probably because I know I'm going too easy. So keep it a lot of subjective stuff. Remember what it's like. A couple of tips that I've used, like for example on the bike, is I always try to make sure that I can say 3 to 5 words under my breath. Obviously people would think I'm crazy, and they might, but they would really think I'm crazy if they heard me going by saying words to myself. But if I can't complete a 3 to 5 word little sentence or phrase to myself, I know that I'm too out of breath. And that might be okay if I'm making a decision to do that, but I want to know and be aware of why I'm doing it. And then I observe the power on the bike. I do not enslave myself to it. So I always run it past. What's the power looking like? Okay, I got an idea of what it is right now. How do my legs feel? And how's my breathing? Those are the things that I'm always kind of going through. Do not judge your race until it's over. That's a big one. I can remember several races. I think before it was Racine, it was called Spirit of Racine. I'll just be honest with you. I was running, and I think I was I thought I was doing terrible. It was like 110, 112 degrees, something insane. It was like 2003 or something like that. Maybe it was 2005. I don't know. You guys would remember if you've done it, but it was so bad. And the winner of the race ended up running a 135. So while I was out there, though, I thought, this is terrible. It's the negative stuff starts to kind of circle, and then that's a really bad thing. That's a bad spiral. You want to stay out of that. So do not judge your race until it's over. Sorry, they're deciding to shovel rocks in the background for the first time all week, so hopefully that's not too distracting for you. Actually, what I do in the morning, I'll kind of run past that. It's funny, very funny, Tim. What's your left foot strike? I get that question a lot. It's whatever that guy's doing, shoveling rocks. I wake up in the morning about 3 hours before the race. Backing up the night before, I always try to eat my dinner about 12 hours before I want to leave my hotel room, so hopefully I can take care of things in my own hotel room. And then I try to eat about 2 to 3 hours before the race. The one that kicks your butt. Yeah, very funny. So you guys are having a little Facebook Live war on me right now. But I always try to eat 2 to 3 hours before. I really like to do a couple of the isogenic shakes. That's what I like. They're super easy to go down. I know I'm not going to have any nutrition problems at all with it. I don't have to store them in cold. I shake them up real easy. They travel anywhere. For me, it works. Use it whatever you like, but I always target about 500 to 700 calories throughout the morning, and so that's just super easy for me to get that in. Then, when I head to the race start, I always try to have that talk with myself. I always work backwards, and in my mind, I'm like, look, I'm going to be up early and stressed because I'm running late, or I'm going to wake up early and not be stressed because I'm on time. So what I do is I just set myself up there to be a little bit earlier than I have to be. Make sure that parking, sometimes I've run into situations where parking can be a stressful situation, and those are all the things that you want to try to eliminate as much stress and anxiety as possible. And then just get there early. You're going to be tired. You're going to be excited. So get there early. Most times you cannot ride your bike before you start, so your bike in some cases is even racked, so if there's a shuttle situation, you definitely want to be even a little bit earlier. So your bike will probably be racked. What you want to do is you want to have a good warm-up, and that's what I concentrate on. Every time I try to short the warm-up, I never bike well for the first 10 miles. So if you've started out feeling like you've had like dead legs on the bike, I guarantee it's probably because your warm-up wasn't right. And so warm up, I always go for a very, very short run, and then I try to find a really quiet place, and I do some really light stretching and some really light plyometrics. I want to use my cycling legs, but I can't take my bike out. So here's a tip. Going up the stairs is engaging the same muscles as your bike. Hopping up onto a park bench, same muscles as the bike. Hopping down from the park bench, same muscles as your bike. So you don't want to do it for set rep max or anything like that, but you want to make it so that you've used those muscles. So I'll walk over to a park bench kind of by myself, and I'll just kind of jump up on it, 3 sets of 10, and then step back down. Just using those legs, getting them engaged, and then I try to run back easy to my my bike, make sure that it all set up. I try to be as minimal as possible so that I don't get confused. Make your decisions, tuck your bag. For those of you here, don't put your towel sideways. We do on our podcast, don't be that guy. Don't be that guy that puts your beach towel out sideways. I always take about a hand-sized towel. You just need a towel that's about the width of your 2 shoes placed together. I put my number belt underneath my running shoes so that it doesn't blow away. My shoes on top of that, and a very small towel that kind of sticks out in case I need to poke it, wipe my feet off so it's poking out a little bit. Tanya's asking, do I bring a spare pair of shoes to run for my warm-up? That's a really good question. I usually don't. When I have one transition area, it's usually not a big deal. But if it is a double transition, and some of them are now, you want to make sure to be prepared for that. So that's actually a really good idea. Make sure you understand how the transition flows. Truth be told, a lot of times I kind of let that go until I'm racing, because usually I'm in the last pack or something like that, and so I'm usually just following people anyway. But it is a good idea. There are times that the transition can be confusing. You want to make sure that you know where your bike is. Some of them are really hard. There's a really funny YouTube video of me not being able to find my bike in transition that I'm sure somebody will find, but you know, sometimes it's really hard. In that particular case, there was 2x4s holding up the bike, so we would just slide our bike wheels into it, and there was nothing descriptive about any of the racks or any of the place that you could find your bike. And then when the bikes were all gone and I was the first biker in, everybody's wetsuits and everything were covering up all the racks and the shoes, so it was really hard. But an ideal situation, note where you are relative to a tree or something fixed that's not going to be left. The balloons, that doesn't really, I don't think that matters, because everybody has a balloon, so you know, whatever. I always look for what rack number am I, what, you know, tree am I by the row of Porta Johns or I'm not, or something like that. But you want to understand the transition and how it flows. Another tip that I tell people is move through transition quickly, but not panicked. Anytime you try to do something extremely panicked, you're probably just going to do it slower. So just be deliberate, but concise in your transitions. I love to break up my races in 15-minute increments. It helps me stay focused. It helps me stay engaged. I set certain goals for myself every 15 minutes, and I wipe the slate clean every 15 minutes. So if I'm ahead of my goal or behind, I don't really care. It's just for each 15 minutes, I kind of refocus on my race. People will ask me, how should I do a hilly course, or how should I do? I'm always pre-decided that going in, and then I hold myself accountable to that schedule on my 15-minute increments, and that's what I do. So if hopefully that might work for you. I tell my athletes, expect speed bumps, and what I mean by that is not, well, I guess in some races you might literally want to expect those, but when you're driving through the mall or something and you're looking for somebody in the shopping, maybe you're picking them up, and you hit a speed bump that you weren't, it's very jarring, right? It's like, whoa, what just happened? If you expect that same speed bump, it's not a big deal. So if you expect things to go wrong and you have little plans for them, yeah, it sucks a little bit, but then just plan for it, or know what you're going to do and move on. I was watching a race when I was recovering from surgery. I was watching a race for pretty much the last 2 years, and someone crashed coming into T2. It wasn't a bad crash. They got right up. They spent more time standing up cussing at everyone around them than the actual crash took. So it was like 19 seconds or something like that. And I'm like, dude, it's been 30 seconds, move on, you know? So I tell my athletes a lot of times, it's not really what happens, it's your reaction to it that makes a bigger deal. If you're going to PR, and I'm sure all of you will, because everybody there has been listening to our podcasts and our Facebook Lives and has been diligently writing down all the information and practicing everything right. PRs hurt. PRs don't feel easy. My dad once saw me racing and he couldn't understand why I looked like I was in discomfort. And I'm like, Dad, our 90% hurts just as much as your 90%. So 90% is always going to hurt. So if you're going out to try to do the same time that you were doing last year and you try to do it with your new fitness, that would feel easier. But I would imagine that you're going out to do the same intensity and you hope that that yields a faster result. So don't get discouraged if you're out there and you're thinking, man, I thought I was in better shape than this. You're probably going faster, and PRs hurt. And I always tell myself a couple things totally candidly. I used to say, okay, I'm like 3/4 of the way into this race right now. I can either go through all of that to get to where I am right now to set myself up for a PR, or I can finish this one, right? Or especially late in the run, I would start to think, okay, remember that 90-90, so 90 seconds on, 90 seconds on off run that I did once, where 10 times through, like, I know that I could get through that, so maybe I'll start with that. So I'm just going to do 90 seconds on, see how I go after 90 seconds, and I'll refocus. And I always usually just keep rolling through the 90 seconds. But I'm not touching on that to give you all every tip that I can think of there, because it would take too long. But I will tell you that even when you're going fast and you're having a good day, by definition, you're going faster than you've ever gone. So you're setting new limits and it's gonna be uncomfortable. Don't worry about that. Don't feel like you're doing something wrong. Find ways to stay positive, find ways to stay engaged. I've seen it so many times when I'm analyzing athletes' races where they're doing fine and then immediately all of a sudden they're not doing fine. And I say, that's where you turned off, isn't it? And they said, absolutely. So stay engaged. If you can stay engaged, then you're gonna have a better race. If you are feeling good, try to stay subjective. We kind of talked about that a little bit. So think about being light, think about being fast, think about having quick feet. Don't get too into the nomenclature. Wait until you get tired. As you start to fatigue and maybe things aren't going so well, that's when you want to really get into the objective measures. Like, okay, what's my cadence? What's my, all those other stuff. And so, but until then, you can actually kind of screw up your body's normal and best ability to do things right if you get in its way. So stay subjective until you need to get objective. If you're getting heavy legs, it's probably a sign that you're low on calories. Most of you should be well trained enough that you cannot all of a sudden not run 13 miles or whatever it is you're doing. If you're doing Ironman, that might be a little bit different, right? But hopefully your training has been enough that you should be able to cover the distance, right? So if you're getting heavy legs, 9 times out of 10, that's because you're getting short on calories. So that would be my tip there if your legs feel heavy earlier than you expected. If your hands start cramping or your biceps start cramping, I've had that happen, that's a good sign that you're dehydrated. So I would try to increase the hydration a little bit at that point. That's what I got. I want to tell you all really good luck. I've been racing for 20 years. I'm just as nervous this year as I've been for every last 19 years or something like that. It's supposed to be fun though. Remember that your family's going to love you no matter what. Stay positive. Don't draft. If you draft, you suck. No, just kidding. No, kind of. And be a fair competitor. Go out there, do the best you can at the end of the day. And another little tip is have plans for after the race too, because it'll help you kind of see through that race and get on to whatever you're going to be doing next. Please, I love answering the questions that you guys send. We have the new Ask feature on the Superfly Coaching. All you have to do is go to superflycoaching.com/ask. If you want me to address a question for next week, load it up there, and you won't be put on an email list or anything like that, but I will just make sure to answer your question, because that's why I do this. I'm trying to do this to help you guys. So good luck to everybody. We'll see you at Haines City. If you're coming to Haines City, if you're going somewhere else, go kick some ass, and we'll see you next week. Bye.